Roger, go for deploy.
Alrighty, welcome back to Adventure Fit Radio. We are here today with Fleecy Malay. Fleecy is a spoken word poet and a public speaking coach. So thanks for coming down, Fleecy.
You're more than welcome. Thanks for having me.
Cool. All right, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, who you are, who's Fleecy Malay?
Who is Fleecy Malay? I am a woman, a mother, a poet, a coach. I was brought up in the UK. I moved to Australia about 6 years ago. And when I arrived, I set up a woman spoken word event. And from there on, it's just kind of unraveled into a world of doing TED Talks or TEDx Talks and running events. And
you can say TED Talks. They're all the same.
Oh, they're not. You get told off if you say TED.
Do you really?
Yeah.
No, TEDx Talks. TEDx Talks. Let's just, we'll take that out. We'll scratch back to the start. Really? They're very particular about that, are they?
Well, because TED is a specific part of it that runs only in the States, and TEDx are the kind of offshoot events.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Let's continue.
So now I basically perform spoken word all around the world, and I coach people into speaking with authenticity and vulnerability, and I'm an advocate for women's rights. I'm an advocate for authenticity and vulnerability as a social change tool.
Can you, before we go anywhere else, can you expound on that? On authenticity and vulnerability as a social change tool? What do you exactly mean by that?
So what I mean by that is, in my eyes, we live in a world which is very disconnected, right? No matter how many, all these little connection tools we've got.
100%.
So disconnected. And you just have to look in the newspaper almost every week to see the levels of depression, of mental health disorders, of addiction, and that are coming out of a culture which is so disconnected. So for me, I'm about creating a culture of celebration and connection where we actually connect with each other. So we strip off our masks that we've been taught to wear by society as we've been brought up, whatever they are. If different people, different identities have been given different things that they've been told they have to wear, and actually finding connection with each other. And I feel like in that, what actually happens is we create a better world. We have the capacity to actually just let go and be real with each other. And in that, the world starts to change, because I don't believe that we can actually treat each other the way that we're treating each other in this world if we were able to see each other properly.
That's fascinating. That's really good. Yeah, I'm really into the idea of the masks that we wear and the stories that we tell ourselves and the position we hold inside of our society and how that dictates who we are and who we talk to and who we associate with. It's such bullshit. That's why I think I own a travel company, and I think travel, when you meet people, when you're traveling all around other sides of you meet someone on the other side of the world, I feel like you get that real version of the person, because they don't have they don't have their community around them, their story, that I'm this, I have to act this way, I can't talk to this person, I shouldn't be seen with them, so on and so forth. That all goes out the window. I'm a really big believer of that.
Totally. And also when we take ourselves out of our comfort zone, we actually have to open ourselves up to other things. You know, what would normally be scary in our comfort zone isn't so scary anymore, because it's the day-to-day, like meeting new people. If you're moving every day, you have to meet new people. And so actually I found the times that I've been traveling are the times that I've been the most open and the most creative as well. I write more, I draw more, I have more self-reflection time as well.
100%. That's great. Okay, cool. So, all right. So how did it all start? Where did you come from? Did you come from a creative background? Were you into poetry? Were you into speaking and stuff as a youngster in the UK before you came over here, or?
So I wanted to, as a kid, I wanted to be an actress. This is when I was about 9, right? An actress or an artist or a rat catcher.
Rat catcher.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
They were my
Perfect.
three.
Of course. Those three. Yeah.
And I feel like I've kind of got all three in being a spoken word poet.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so I went to stage school. I went to the Brit School, which is just outside of London. And it's actually had one of those schools that's had a really positive amount of people that have come out of it that have made it quite famous in the music community. But I came out of it kind of going, I hate theatre.
Yeah,
I
right.
hate the two-facedness, the masks. I didn't realize what it was then, but it's the inauthenticity. It's the theatre world is based around competition. You go to an audition and they're looking for one skinny blonde white girl. They're looking for one tall, dark, handsome man, whatever they are. They have their categories of what they want. And there's like 50 of you applying for the same role. And also just the part of acting is that, I mean, I love acting, but a big part of it is you're spending your life being other people.
Yeah.
And as I grew up and as I found spoken word, I realized that spoken word gave me the capacity to be on stage and just be myself. But that wasn't easy because I'd spent my whole life not being myself and trying to be cool and trying to fit in. And so a big part of it was kind of moving from that world into spoken word and this journey of trying to like work out who I was under the eyes of other people. I was also very, very political. So I kind of rejected society for many years. I lived in squats. I lived in tree houses in the woods.
Tree houses?
Yeah.
That sounds way better than society.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, you sound like you live in every teenager's dream.
Well, it had a blue tarp for a roof. So it wasn't like, it wasn't.
Right, so it was more of a tree tarped area.
It was a tree lean-to. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sweet.
And then I decided that I wanted to, in that kind of rejection of society, and this need to find something of myself, I decided to see how I'd stopped flying and I traveled a lot. So I was hitchhiking around Europe at this point and decided I wanted to get to Australia without flying. So I headed on this big journey across the world. And
just cutting laps in the pool every day, like 1,000 laps every day.
Yeah, something like that. I actually ended up stopping in Thailand, spent a long time in Thailand.
Yeah.
It was there through spending a year and a half living within the same community in Thailand and showing up on stage, the same people over and over again on this very small little area that I think I discovered more about myself as an artist and a poet and a performer. And in that, I believe that when we see ourselves on stage, we see ourselves in life, So I think, and then from there, I ended up flying from South Malaysia to Melbourne about 3 years after I left.
Gotcha. Cool. Cool. Yeah, I listened to your TED Talk. I listened to your TED Talk recently. The one, obviously, the Melbourne one hasn't come out. The first one, and it was really interesting. It made me think differently, or open me up to thoughts I hadn't had about spoken word poetry and actually being on stage and so forth. And I've got lots of questions around that, but can you tell me what is the power behind spoken word?
Stories throughout history have been the carriers of connection and wisdom, right? They're the stories have brought people together and they have brought knowledge forwards. And we live in a world where stories they're kind of everywhere, but they're kind of very two-dimensional on screens and stuff. And we've kind of lost the connection with real people. And what I think spoken word does on one level is it brings us back to real people, real voices, real stories and truth. And the other powerful thing about spoken word is it came from a movement of marginalized voices, right? It's a rising up. It's taken something which is, and always has been, like literature has always belonged to the elite. It's belonged to the people who have had the education to be able to be literarily advanced.
It was illegal hundreds of years ago to read or reproduce the works of like the Bible.
Yeah.
Like it was illegal. It was to control and for the elites.
So it was only for the scribes.
Yeah.
And so it was really unless you were within the money in the church, you couldn't have access to language within the kind of within my culture anyway. And I think from what spoken word does is it takes something that has been so restrained to the elite. Even now, I mean, like we say, oh, it's not for the elite, but like we're in a very small population of the planet who's actually been educated enough to be able to read and write.
Oh, 100%. And even financially, we are the elite.
Yeah,
worldwide,
exactly.
On a worldwide level, 1%.
And so what it does is it takes something which has always belonged to the elite and it gives it to the folk, to the people who, if you can speak, even if you speak with sign language, I've been to spoken word sign language events, right? If you can speak, you can have a voice and you can be a poet, you can be a spoken word artist. And therefore what we get is the unheard stories, the untold stories. We get people from the LGBTQI plus community, we get people of color, we get disabled people, we get whoever it is. It's people who have been, we get women, we get men talking about their emotions and their feelings. Whatever part of you that has been marginalized, whatever part of you that has been pushed down has a space and a voice. And in this world, that is needed and it's powerful.
I agree. I think a good example of this, which isn't spoken word, but it's very much to the similar ideas, is Humans of New York. You know, just telling people stories, random people on the street. Because like you say, stories that we read are normally stories of fictional heroes or non-fictional heroes, kind of, really. You don't just hear somebody tell their true story of their life, you know, and a lot of people that, there's probably a lot of things to be learnt from people that that may have had a tough life and may have ended up on the wrong side of the tracks and may be in a compromised position because, you know, there's always wisdom there, I feel like. So, yeah, I get it. I like it.
Have you seen the TEDx talk by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie called The Danger of a Single Story?
No.
So that's another reason why I think spoken word is powerful, because what she talks about in that TEDx is that when we only hear one story of a type of a person, and when I talk about person, I mean almost like a stereotype of a person, then we begin to put everybody into that box, and there's a danger in that. And what's so beautiful about spoken word is we become our own representation in a culture that doesn't necessarily represent us. So me as a queer woman, I don't necessarily get represented as myself in the media around me, right?
Yeah.
So what it does is it gives a place for us to begin to represent ourselves. And we actually, so when I stand on stage and tell my story, other women who are in the audience who maybe identify as queer or identify as being a solo mum or maybe identify as being a poet or an artist or whatever their thing is that they see in me, they see themselves for a moment and they get permission. They get permission to be more themselves in this world, to show up more fully as themselves. And I think because we have this power of access to media that we didn't have 20 years ago, we have the capacity to actually start to reframe what is being represented, who is being represented, and spoken word, especially in like social media now, because it's short 3-minute often. They're 3-minute video poems which you can put into a video, and that is so consumable and it's so easy to take in. But we can actually put our stories out in the world in a way that is completely consumable and compelling and true for people. 100%.
And people are probably refreshed to hear new stories, new, fresh ideas, because when you talk about actual narratives, I think they say that there's, and I was reading about this because I've stumbled upon it the last few months, is like narratives that you hear in any real story, fictional story, there's like six stories that they all fit into. Boy and girl, hero, the hero story, coming back from turmoil or whatever. There's basically like six narratives, and that's every single movie can be and book that's been written can be kind of shoved into those six narratives. But that's not real life, you know. That's like what people get entertained by. But it's pretty entertaining to hear, you know, real stories of actual real life. You would actually really enjoy that's a weird way to say it. You would really vibe with my housemate Alana. She just put on a show at the Fringe Festival in Melbourne. It was called Julia, a Lesbian, and she's queer. She actually taught me about LGBTQ because I didn't know it was. I was always saying LGBT. She's like, LGBTQ. You just said an I and a plus.
It's an I plus, yeah.
Right.
So
I just can't keep up with the times. I am literally falling behind. I think that I'm going good, and then I'm behind already. But
so I is intersex people.
Gotcha.
And then plus is people like asexual, pansexual.
Gotcha. I learned about asexual the other day too on a Netflix thing. She actually had a play, Julia, a Lesbian, and it was a queer play. She was the director, and Natalie, who was living with me at the time as well, she was from Chile. She came over and she played Julia. It's a one-woman show. And it was really great because she, Alana, is very, very much similar to, actually dissimilar to you, and she loves theatre. You know, that's what she lives and breathes it.
I do love theatre. I'm not just going to say that. I do love theatre.
Well, you ragged it out pretty bad before, let's be honest.
It was the world around it when I was growing up.
We'll cut that part out as well. We'll cut that part out. But she feels like she's queer, and she feels like, you know, her story doesn't get told. So that's why she wanted to, she wanted to tell the story of Julia, a lesbian, and get entertaining and fun and consumable for LGBTQI plus regular, you know, like straight people, young and old, you know, whatever, like for all people. So for that same reason, like to get that story out there.
It's also the power of normalizing. So, I mean, Netflix, you mentioned Netflix. Netflix is doing it really well.
I apologise because I just said normal people, I think, when I was referring to the not LGBTQI, and I didn't mean that. So,
heteronormative.
yeah.
So Netflix, what they are doing is they have, in a lot of their shows, I've noticed, is they'll have characters who are, for example, trans or queer or whatever, and they're having them as, they're just a character in there. It's not an issue. It's not an issue about them. So in the OA, I don't know if you've seen the OA.
No.
There's it's a great. I really
seen the
loved
OC.
it.
Is it OC? No, I'm just joking. I haven't seen it. But yeah, go on.
The OA is, I really liked it, but there's a character in it who happens to be a trans boy, and you don't know that really. He's just there, and then at one point he goes home, and I think it's his dad refers to him by his dead name, which would be the name that he was before he transitioned, and that's the only real clue that you get, and it's not a big thing. It's just that he's there. And I think that's what we really need to start doing in our society, is actually telling stories, is putting real people into real stories. So rather than like telling stories about the issues of those people, which we need to do as well, but also what about just having some characters, just letting people be people, as well as being a person of color, as well as being queer, as well as being like disabled, as well as being whatever else, emotional, whatever it is. Just having them have like the day-to-day roles in society. And I think that's the other thing about doing spoken word is I might get up there and one of my poems might be about being queer, but one of them might be about, you know, what I like to eat. It could be anything. It could be anything that I'm interested in. And what it does is it breaks that single story, and it actually starts to create people, to make people relatable. It takes down the othering and starts to bring us together as people.
100%. I think the word other, when it's referred to people, is the greatest crime in the history of humanity. You know what I believe in regards to that? I'm like this for one of two things. We find life on another planet, or we get an asteroid hurtling towards Earth and we have to like do Armageddon style, like call NASA, get the rockets, where's Bruce Willis? And we go, we blow, and we save humanity.
Yeah.
We find something else that we can call other, you know, because at the moment, there's still always us and them. You know, we are us, they are them. And until we as humans become us, we are us. I don't know. I think we're so ingrained to think that way that we need something to... The
unification against a common enemy kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, Mars attacks. It's just, I think right now, maybe in like hundreds, and it's obviously trending the right way, like where you are having this conversation right now. I mean, probably 20 or 30 years ago, like it wouldn't be, you know, you wouldn't have the same probably opportunities. Like it's trending the right way for sure. But yeah, I think if we were to fast track it, we need aliens.
My brain's so like, I'm going, maybe the common enemy could be our inner demons.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking aliens. Yeah, it's sweet. So what was it like growing up as a, you know, somebody that was, you know, in a minority that probably... Well, I'm an 80s kid. I don't know how old you are, but like, you know, as I said, it's only really things that... What was it like? What was it like growing up as in a minority? And you...
I mean, I'm quite lucky because I'm pretty like straight passing. So like for most of my life, most people didn't... It's only since I shaved my hair that people actually would view me as being queer, and being someone who's attracted to people of all genders. It meant that I was quite often in relationships with men. And... So on that level, it was kind of, I didn't get necessarily all the issues that other people get. I was quite privileged. But then on another level, like coming out as at the time I would use the term bi, right, as a queer person, people would be like, oh, but is it boys that you like or is it girls? Because you got to choose one. And I wasn't accepted within the gay community. I wasn't accepted within the straight community.
Yeah.
And what that does is it creates a story. So even now, in my 30s, I am unpacking this feeling that when I find myself attracted to a man, that maybe it was all a lie. That maybe it's all a fad. Oh my God, a really cute puppy just ran past.
I know. How good is that dog?
I just got really distracted.
I was distracted too because I saw it run that way and I was like, oh fuck, what are you talking about again? This is a dog-friendly office, so it's very easy to get distracted. And that is the cutest puppy of all time. We should get him on the podcast. Get over here, boy. No, just joking.
So yeah, where was I going with that? So it's that I unpack this story of like when I find myself attracted to a man, it's like, well, am I even queer? Maybe they were right. Maybe it was all just a fad. Maybe it was just attention seeking, right? And then when I find myself attracted to, say, women or non-binary people or trans people or queer people in general, it's like, well, maybe I wasn't straight. Maybe it was all just, maybe I was just, and actually it's all of it. I'm all of it, and sexuality is fluid. But what I didn't get when I was growing up is that kind of acceptance. It was, there was definitely in the UK around that time. I mean, like I was born in the mid-late 80s, right? So
Me too. 86.
86.
Yeah. We are on, Felicie. Man, we are on. It's great.
So what I got was there'd been a sexual revolution. There'd been a kind of sexuality revolution as well in the kind of 80s. And there was a lot more gay men on TV, right? So we had Graham Norton, we had Queer as Folk, we had Will and Grace, but really the only gay woman I saw was Ellen, and she came out quite a long way into, like, I was probably 13 and when she came out,
and
maybe.
she wasn't gay on the Ellen program.
She came out on Ellen, but it was quite a way into the series, right?
Yes, that's right. I remember that.
It was quite a long way in, and I think for me, it was very difficult to, again, representation, to see myself on TV and to see myself, because I watched a lot of TV, as a kid. Like I would watch Dawson's Creek. I wouldn't see me in Dawson's Creek, I'd watch, whatever the shows were that I was watching. And I think that that was probably quite a hard part for me. And just kids being kids, and they pick on whatever they can, right? So like 100%. I remember walking down, and I was into metal music. I was kind of this cyber goth hippie metal punk kid, right?
You grabbed all the things that kids could pick on, and you were like,
I just shoved them all in. Yeah, I'm all of them. Give them to me. And I remember walking down the street and an 18-year-old boy punched me in the face. Just walked past me and punched me in the face. Jesus. Another time, a kid threw a burger at me, screaming "witch dyke lesbian."
Jesus,
funny how he didn't realize how right he was. Really,
yeah, that's quite a mouthful too.
Yeah,
it's like not the burger, but the witch lesbian.
Yeah, it wasn't the catchiest.
It's not. No one's gonna pick that up and run with it. It's not soundbiteable. But that must have been tough. Well, it's good that you now you're out there, getting people to tell their own stories and so tell us about your when you said when you came to Australia you had your spoken word your first spoken word night. Yeah, how did that all come about?
So I travelled here. I'd met a guy when I was in Thailand. And I was coming to Melbourne anyway, and turned out he was from Melbourne, and we were all in love. And I met him here, and we hitchhiked from Melbourne up to Far North Queensland, where I used to live as a kid. By the time we got there, we didn't like each other all that much.
Gotcha.
As comes when you travel with people, that often happens.
I did that with my dog that trip earlier in the year, and fucking hell, we were ready to just have a little break.
Yeah. So we broke up, and I was left like thousands of miles away from home, didn't really know anybody, and I needed to surround myself with women. And it was this concept that women had become this thing I was competing against. But what I wanted was a solace in women, in sisters. So I came up with this idea of Mother Tongue, which was the Women's Spoken Word event. And I rang a friend of mine, Vanessa Florence, and we decided to run one in Melbourne. I went back to Melbourne, and about 2 weeks after I arrived, we ran it. And I was expecting 10, 11 people. I literally printed 25 flyers off on my home printer and handed them out. And I had about 10 of them left. Sorry, you know what it's like. Yeah. So I was thinking, maybe 10, 11 people might come. We had 75 people.
Wow, that's crazy.
That night. And then by the end of the night, they were like, when's the next one happening? So we said, next month. Why not? Be here, put your email list down. Yeah. We had 200 people come to the next one.
Wow.
We had to up venue size.
For sure.
And then from then on, it's been running monthly for 6 years now.
Wow.
And it's created a whole community within itself. We've also had one run we had one-off events in Castlemaine, in Byron, in Adelaide, in Canada, and in San Francisco as well. So my vision is to have them running all over the world, like on their own, But yeah, it's been a really amazing. And what what I see every month is these women showing up and sharing their stories. And then the audience is mixed gendered. And what I see is community of all genders coming together to celebrate and witness women's voices and women's stories. And in vulnerability and in courage and in honesty, not in kind of like, hey, look, follow my Instagram feed. I'm rocking the world. I'm such a boss bitch, you know. Like it's. I mean, and that's cool if that's what you're rocking, if that's your truth. But like sometimes that's not my truth. Sometimes I fucking hurt.
Yeah.
And I just wanna. I didn't clear if I could swear, but
you can
great.
swear for sure.
Because sometimes I fucking hurt and I'm sad, and we get women up there talking about abuse. We get women talking about rape. We get women talking about mental health issues. We get them talking about falling in love, having kids, having babies, like not
real
being able
stuff.
to have babies, real life stuff.
People connect with that. That's why people don't understand social media. People, you know, some do, but like, so many of these, you know, people that are making their life, making their money and their lifestyle through being just pretty. Like people care about real, you know. People care about authenticity is a word you used earlier, and people they can connect with. People
Exactly.
connect with real things. People don't connect with, oh man, you look super hot standing next to that protein shaker. You have had a great day. Like, you know, like no one gives a fuck about that.
But that leads us back round, because what we're doing with social media is we're actually just continuing this culture of competition and beauty standards that are just unreachable by anybody. Men have to be strong and emotionless. Women have to be beautiful and toned and skinny. Everyone has to be white and straight. And it's like, it's not. It's just like some people are that, and that's really amazing that you are that, but it's also really amazing when you're not that too. And when we are just perpetuating those things in our social media feeds and perpetuating that story, we're not actually making the world a better place.
No,
we're not.
Way worse.
And can we show up with like our cellulite, and can we show up with our depression, and can we show up with our just like, I'm just having a good day watching the trees.
Yeah.
You know, like just whatever is
the trees
our
on
story.
Netflix. I'm watching the trees on Netflix, and it's fucking awesome.
You should pitch that. I think that would they'd take it.
Nah, I'm with you. I've got a huge problem with social media. Listeners of this podcast are probably sick of me talking about it, but I think there should be I think there will be warning labels in 10 years, 20 years time, just like cigarettes. But there's good people out there doing good things as well. But that's neither here nor there. But that's interesting. One of the things that I wanted to talk about with you was something that I heard on your TED Talk, and it was about. So obviously you have facilitated the space for women to talk and speak on stage, or whatever, and you also coach people in public speaking, right? So why? And I have my theories. Why is public speaking more horrifying a thought than the thought of death and spiders and sharks and everything else? Why is that?
You have to add spiders and sharks because we're in Australia, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, spiders and sharks combined.
Yeah. Because it leads back to the sense of social rejection. If I show up and speak, what if they don't like what I say? What if I don't like what I say? What if my community rejects me? Okay, and in this day and age, that's not too much of a bad thing, you know. So I mean, it can be harrowing to the soul to be rejected by community, but you can usually meet new people or whatever. However, primarily, if we are rejected by our community, we are on our own. If we are on our own, we are dead. You cannot survive as an individual primarily. And so what I feel like the fear of public speaking speaks to is that fear of death, of like, if I show up and I get rejected, what will happen? And then that's been enhanced by different things. So for example, this concept of, I don't know if you saw, I got a poem called Witches that came out that went viral. And that's when we think as women, what it is as women in the Me Too movement to speak up, when that links back to to so many hundreds of years worth of literally killing women for speaking up. then that follows through. Trauma actually exists in DNA, right? It exists and lives in DNA. Same for people of color, you know, same for Jewish people with, you know, same for so many of us. And we walk, and it's the same for men, like the years of silencing emotions, of silencing truth, of silencing honesty and holding face. And it changes our DNA. It creates a trauma story. And the idea of actually speaking isn't just, I'm afraid that these people in this room won't hear me.
Yeah.
It's facing that fear of that we've been carrying. It's actually for me, when we do start speaking up, it's actually reshaping our DNA. You know, I don't know if that's scientific. Don't ask Dr.
We'll
Carl
go with
about
it.
that.
There's plenty of room for bro science on Adventure Radio. Don't worry. Pseudo bro science, whatever you want to call it.
But it's reframing the neural pathway of like, if I speak, I will get shamed and I will die. It's kind of coming into this, like, actually there is, for me, I see there as being comfort zones and safety zones. And I fully encourage people to push their comfort zone and also to know where your safety zone is in each moment, and not push your safety zone, but push your comfort zone. And when we can define where those 2 points are, then we can actually safely speak up. We can take our art, we can take our poetry, we can take our opinions, we can take our emotions, and we can put them in places where we can speak up that is uncomfortable, but it is not unsafe.
I thank you for that answer. That was a very good answer.
I got a bit ranty in there.
No, it's good. It was good. As I never really thought about public speaking all that much, but I feel like I can connect with that. I've always had a very big fear of public speaking. I've done it a few times now, and I don't find it difficult. But it's that fear of the unknown, really, and whatever. But I've always had an issue when I've had personal times where they've been rough. I get social anxiety. That's like, very rarely have I had like what you would call probably depression or whatever. And I don't get crazy anxieties of fear of death or ghosts or whatever, like I know some people have. I get social anxiety really bad. And it all stems back to, I believe, and my psychologists believe, the fear of people not liking me, what you say, and going back to the primal level of like, no one will like me, no one will love me, I will be alone. Because if you think of like, thank you for that TED Talk, because that actually was the most befuddling thing to me, the whole fear of public speaking thing. But it kind of makes sense to me now, because like you say, it's primal. Like the worst thing that we can do to the most horrible people on the planet, if you're a murderer, a rapist, whatever, psychopath, and you're in jail and you fuck up in jail, we put you in solitary confinement. Like, you're going by yourself, and it's the worst feeling ever, and it drives people crazy. So actually standing up on stage and feeling like, okay, here's who I am. You don't have the comfort zone of you're talking to your friends and family and people that love you most, or people that know you, your co-workers or in your community. You really are opening yourself up to large amounts of people potentially not actually agreeing with you and potentially not liking you, which you have to be okay with, but we're not as people. So how do you teach people? That's fascinating. How do you break through that with people?
Firstly is the realization that when you're up on that stage and you're afraid of all those things happening, the realization that every single person sitting in that audience is exactly afraid of the same thing. We're all afraid of the same thing. We're all afraid of showing up somewhere, whether it's on stage or to our loved ones or to our close ones. To me, public speaking is speaking to anyone other than myself. And sometimes it's also how I show up to myself, right? My inner voice. So if I can stand on stage and remember that I'm not speaking to a crowd of faces waiting to lynch me, what I'm speaking to is a crowd of people who are petrified of being seen and doing their best to show up in all these ways that society and social media have told us to show up, and going home and often feeling lonely at times, and often feeling sad, and often feeling unachieved, or often crying at times if they might, or like whatever it is, watching Netflix, binge eating ice cream, whatever it is that we do, right? All these people in this audience have that. And when we remember that, suddenly they aren't othered. They're just like us. And then in that, can I then speak to them as if I was speaking to somebody who I knew, rather than trying to prove myself or shying back and hiding myself? What if I just showed up as me, and in that gave them the opportunity to see themselves? And you know what? If they can't take it, my role in my idea when I stand on stage, my role is to stand up and tell my story with as much honesty as I can, to make it as accessible to people, to create connection, right? To create connection. And if I show up and I've done my half. My part of the work isn't to make them hear my story or like my story. My role is to make my story available to those who need it, to other people like me who want to connect. And there might be people out there who just are in a point in their life that they just cannot connect with what I'm saying. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And if they don't like it and they're not into it, that's their thing.
No harm done.
It's no harm done. I'm not here to prove to anybody else that they should be honest. I'm here to show up and say, I am ready to be honest. And if you are ready to be honest too, come, let's do it. Let's step forward and make social change. Because I believe that vulnerability attracts vulnerability. Authenticity attracts authenticity. And in that, eventually, like there was times in my life that I wasn't able to either. And it's not just like once I've got it, I'm there, I'm enlightened. No way. It's every day I show up. And every day I have to ask, how much am I able to be honest today? How much am I able to be vulnerable today? What will serve me today? And in that, maybe the people in the audience one day who weren't able to, next time they watch the TED Talk or whatever else, they are. And it affects us differently in those days, you know? So for me, my work really is to just help myself and others show up as themselves. And in that, maybe inspire others to do the same.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. It's a really nice, a nice thing to put your. It's good. I feel like that would be really rewarding. You know, which is the aim of the game. Fleecy, we actually have to get you out of here. Before we do, we normally have 3 questions from me, 3 questions from one of my co-hosts. One of my co-hosts moved to Bali, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my 3 questions. We call it 6 from 6. I'm going to do my 3 questions, and then I'm going to see which questions I can remember from Tommy's old 3 questions, which are also quite good. All right? So they'll have to be rapid fire-ish.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So my first question is, what is your favourite travel destination on the planet? That you recommend.
England.
England, hometown.
As in, head to the Celt, head to Dartmoor, head to the sacred circles, head to the stone circles, head to the actual nature that is, and not just England, actually, the whole of the UK, south of Wales, Scotland.
Ooh, Scotland's
it's
nice.
Stunningly beautiful.
Yeah,
it's got
green.
a finesse to it.
Blue
It's got
road
a
green.
real, like, there's so many shades of green. Like you say, you didn't even realise there was such a spectrum of green in that world.
Things that are blue in other countries are green over there.
Yeah.
Everything's green.
Yeah. And I've
Yeah.
been to a lot of countries all around the world. I
Yeah.
have a couple of others like Japan, the South Islands of Japan,
Yeah.
stunning, and France, south of France. I
Okay.
love as well.
Cool. I like it. Okay, so next question is dream travel destination. So somewhere you haven't been, absolute top of your bucket list.
Somewhere that I haven't been that is the top of my bucket list. New Zealand.
Oh, really? I'm going there in about 5 days.
Yep.
Yeah,
Fuck
should
you.
come.
Yeah, all right, okay.
There
Don't
we
fuck
go.
you. I'll take it. Yeah, why not? New Zealand. I'd love to go. It was actually my original vision was to travel overland all the way to New Zealand and then travel overseas back around to the UK.
Cool.
And I just got sidetracked by Thailand and then Australia.
And a boy.
Now I got a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, massive sidetrack of the old kid.
Oh yeah, it's a huge side. But she's a good sidetrack. You know,
yeah,
me and her,
for
we're
sure.
a good team.
Positive sidetrack.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. New Zealand's awesome. I've been there. I'm going over for a mate's wedding, and I'm going to take the opportunity to have a little holiday and go hiking in Milford Sound, which I haven't done before. It's like 4 days, no Wi-Fi, and it's going to be good.
I've been blessed recently to have a lot of people of like Maori people and Kiwi people coming into my life and just seeing the culture and the depth of how much the culture still feels alive in the people is really, to me, it reminds me of finding my culture again.
Yeah.
Reconnecting back with my culture. It's one of the reasons why I love the UK so much is because I get something when I land on that land that I do not get anywhere else in this world. And it's this kind of like quiet whisper of home. It's like the plants talk to me almost.
That's great. That's a good feeling to have. Okay, so my next question is a book that you like to recommend. It can be anything. Can be a comic book. Can be a autobiography. Can be a whatever. Self-development.
I would say, do you know what? I just really love the Philip Pullman trilogy, his Dark Materials. It's one of those ones that I've loved my whole life.
Cool. What type of genre is that?
It's it's fiction, adventure-y, kind of fantasy.
Yeah,
things.
cool.
They made a movie, a pretty bad movie about it called The Golden Compass.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It was a good movie, but it wasn't quite.
No,
what
I've heard
the
the
book
books
is.
are epic.
The
They're
books
right
are
up there with
amazing.
Lord of the Rings and
exactly.
Song of Ice and Fire, and I love all those type of books. So I'd probably really love that series.
And what I love about that series is it starts I feel like the main character Lyra in the first book, she was written for me at 12, 13, 14, you know?
Yeah.
And as we go through the 3 books, she matures and the writing style matures, and the things that we look at the beginning of the book, we're looking at friendships and deceit. By the end of the 3 books, we're looking at multiple universes. We're looking at great grand scale politics and religion, right? And so I feel like the 3 books mature as we mature as readers and as she matures as a character, which
That's
I
great.
really like.
That's great. Cool. Great recommendation. I don't really remember Tommy's 3 questions that he used to throw out there, but I do remember one.
Okay.
And that is 3 people dead or alive that you could have at a dinner party. Who would they be and why?
Brene Brown. Bam.
Brene
number
Brown.
1.
Bang. There we go.
Maya
Easy.
Angelou.
Yep, Maya Angelou.
She's epic.
Yep.
And maybe Oprah,
Oprah.
which sounds really weird. I'm not a massive Oprah fan, but recently...
Maybe she might give you something free under your seat or something.
In fact, I just want a car. I just straight up, I just want a
You're
car.
like, oh, welcome to dinner, Oprah. Just, fucking nothing on it.
No, I think what I like about Oprah, because I don't follow her mainstream stuff. I never have. But what I have done recently is listen to some of her podcasts where she's interviewing people, and she is a really good interviewer. It's actually a dream of mine to be interviewed by Oprah, because I just love the way she draws people out of themselves. And I feel like her, Maya Angelou, and Brene Brown in one room would be like this. I feel like maybe the universe might explode. It's these 3 great humans.
100%. 100%. I feel like saying, well, you're on your way to, getting interviewed by Oprah, but I'm not even on the, if she's A grade, I'm probably I'm a different language on the bottom. No, you're on your way. You're on your way.
Thanks.
Trying to compare myself to Oprah. What a dumb thing to do. No, but...
If you could just send her an email, they know I'm ready.
Yeah, she's a listener to the show.
Yeah.
We'll get her involved. All right, cool. So, Felicie, lastly, where can people find you? Where can people find about your open word speaking engagements, your TED Talks? Where can people find anything Felicie Malay?
FleacieMalay.com, FLEASSY, Malay.com. And Facebook, /Felicie M. Instagram. I'm always on Instagram. They're kind of my 3 main ones. I occasionally do a twit.
Yep.
I occasionally tweet things, but I really don't use that very much. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, Felicie Malay, thanks for coming on the show. That was great.
You're welcome.
And that's a wrap.
Discovery Roger, go for deploy.